and now we're starting becoming gendered. So, how do we identify with a gender and its associated behaviors? Are you born with all the coded in your genes, or do we learn unintentionally, or is there a more formal manner that we learn about our gender? As you might expect, families are the primary influences on gender identity. Now, however, it does not end there, so we're going to explore how we become gendered. Now, you may find that the small breakout boxes in your textbook to be very helpful. They're little short vignettes about individual perspective, and you may find that to be quite useful. Gender communication in the family. We can look at the Psychoanalytic Theory, which posits identity formation is largely an unconscious process through identification and internalization. Unconscious just meaning there's not a formal sit down, let's have this discussion about gender. This is our weekly discussion. Unconscious just means that as a role of a parent and a child, you just go through life doing what you normally do and how you have your family, but there's no discussion about gender. It's just done. You are just influenced. You just receive that information. Freud wrote that anatomy is destiny. This really just meant that the sex of a child determines which parent a child would identify with and how that child's psyche would develop. There has been limited empirical support for Freud's theory, so it doesn't seem to be holding as much water as maybe he had hoped it would. Later theorists, they rejected Freud's notion of destiny, but still focused on the family dynamic as a crucial in the crucial in the information of gendered identities within a family and within particularly their children. Initial identification of our gender identity occurs within the primary caregiver and child relationship through different developmental paths to ensure that ensure male and female for male and female infants. Children of both sexes form first identification with adult women. Around 3 years old, male and female developments start to diverge. Girls continue to identify with their mother in a close relationships. Mothers recognize and emphasize similarity between them and their daughters, leading to stronger identification of daughters with mothers. In contrast, sons must separate from and differentiate from their mothers. These different early family relationships for boys and girls results in different roles internalized by males and female children. Okay, so from that forward then, girls tend to develop a feminine identity within relationships, which leads to an emphasis on closeness and personal communication. Focusing on continuing relationships encourages girls to become more nurturing and relationally oriented. Boys tend to form a masculine identity by distancing themselves from their mothers, preferring interactions with activities, specific groups with changing members. Therefore, they learn to define themselves relatively independently of others. Children in non-traditional families may face social stigma or have difficulty finding available models of both sexes, but family diversity often fosters a new way of thinking. Approximately 2 million children are being raised with gay and lesbian parents. They tend to have more expansive views of gender roles. Lesbian moms tend to model greater egalitarianism in romantic relationships and encourage economic and emotional self-sufficiency in their children, particularly their daughters. There has been less research on heterosexual men as single dads. Children in single-parented families may have trouble finding available models for both genders. Masculine gender can be difficult to grasp if lacking strong relationships with males. Boys may define masculinity in negative terms, like not like mother. Now, ego boundaries are important are the point at which an individual stops and the rest of the world begins. It distinguishes self from everyone and everything else. People with feminine gender identities tend to have relatively permeable ego boundaries that do not entail rigid separation from one another. This may be partially explained why girls and women tend to experience the feelings of those close to them. Conventional masculine gender is premised on fluid alliances with others, which makes for a relatively firm ego boundary. There's not a lot of transferability. They sympathize with others, but do not experience those feelings as their own. Parents communicate about gender to their children in numerous ways. While some parents' attitudes and communication about gender are becoming more egalitarian, much evidence of traditional stereotyping still exists. Parents label and respond to their infants according to their gendered stereotypes within hours of birth. Parents, particularly white middle-class parents, reward verbal and physical activities in sons and interpersonal and social skills in daughters. Heterosexual fathers are particularly likely to encourage sons to be heterosexual. Gay fathers are more likely to resist normative expectations. Mothers typically make talk the center of their relationships with sons and daughters. The talk is focused on providing comfort, security, emotional development. These play at a child's level, which develops confidence and security. Today's fathers talk more with children than in previous generations. They focus on play that is physically stimulating and exciting. They urge children to compete, to achieve, to take risks, and act independently. Parents also communicate gender expectations through encouraging particular toys and activities. Toys marketed for girls encourage gentle, nurturing interactions, and toys marketed to boys promote independent and competitive activities. And as much as we would like to believe that we're much more egalitarian than what I'm expressing, you just need to go to Toys R Us or go to an online catalog to look at the differentiation of toys. You will find some crossing over, but the vast majority will still be very typical boys and girls. Household chores assigned reflect gender expectations. Domestic chores are more frequently assigned to girls, while outdoor work is assigned to boys. In general, boys experience more rigid socialization into masculinity than girls into femininity. We can also look at parent modeling of masculinity and femininity that influence children's understanding of gender. Parents communicate gender through modeling masculinity, femininity, and male and female relationships. For most children, observing parents teaches them roles socially prescribed for men and women. And I think I've mentioned this in a previous video. Watching children in daycare play house gives you a very intimate look in a family's parenting model, because they only know that, and so when they play house, they model what they've seen, and you get a bit of a mirror or a window, I guess, into their homes. In addition to the LGBTQ families and single-parent families, another departure from tradition is the breadwinner role. Most children are in households where all adults work, and 40% of women in two-earner households earn more money than their male partners. Parents can model gendered attitudes about physical appearance. For instance, fathers who engage in strenuous physical activities or mothers who complain about their weight communicate ideas about masculinity and femininity. Now, these are somewhat the unconscious view of gender development. Now we're going to review personal side of the gender drama. Gender and personal identity is influenced by other factors as we interact with others over time. Although there is a dominant model of masculinity, there is also many variations on and challenges to that. There are 6 themes of manhood in America today, and I think you could apply this to Canada as well. The first theme: don't be feminine. For many men, the most fundamental requirement for manhood is not to be feminine, to be accepted by peers, Boys become less verbally expressive. Showing sensitivity or vulnerability makes you sissy or a wimp. This directive is at least as strong for men of color as for white men. 2. Be successful. Boys are expected to be successful at sports and other competitive activities. You must not just be good, but better than everyone else. This often includes being a good provider, which is not realistic after the recession. Men not in a paid labor force have to find other ways to define themselves. 3. Be aggressive. Now let's see what this means. Expected to take stands, be tough. You don't run from confrontations. Media fuels these ideas of extreme masculinity. Now, nowhere does it say about being assaultive. Aggressive is about being tough, about approaching things head on and standing your ground. 4. Be sexual. Men are supposed to be interested in sex. Many have many partners and treat them casually. Now, this is problematic for gay, bisexual, and trans men and younger men who do not want casual sex. This sort of fights against that. What am I at? 4. Be self-reliant. A real man depends on himself, not others. So, in order to be masculine in our society, a man needs to be able to depend on himself and not on everybody else. But the embodiment and transcending of traditional views of masculinity, men feel pressure from other boys and men to be conventionally masculine. However, this is where it becomes a part of a point of which there has been some transition. Romantic partners, female friends, sisters, and mothers expect them to be more sensitive and emotionally open. So more men are depressed and stressed about unwilling to seek help. They are 4 times more likely to take their own lives as a woman. Some counselors believe that striving to live up to the social ideas of masculinity is responsible for widespread male depression, which societies are unwilling to acknowledge since it contradicts the social presumptions and social prescriptions for masculinity. And so it starts to create this impetus, if you will, for social shift and social change over time. So let's look at growing up feminine. And there's 2 distinct versions of femininity. One version suggests that women have it all, since they have new professional opportunities and egalitarian marriages. On the other hand, statistics show that women are unlikely to advance to the highest professional levels. They will continue to be paid less than men, and the workplace policies don't accommodate family responsibilities. So when we consider the themes, there are 5 major themes of femininity and womanhood, and we'll look at each one. First, and most women probably will be able to identify with this particular one, is appearance counts. Nowhere do we mention in the men's themes appearance counts, but we do with women. Women are still judged on their looks. To be desirable is to be pretty, slim, and well-dressed. Consumption is unending and never sufficient to secure lasting success. Women athletes feel particular pressure to look feminine. For example, if you've ever watched beach volleyball at a professional level, and you watch the men, they have shorts that go mid-thigh and tank tops. You look at the women, they're wearing basically underwear. Bathing suits, bikinis. Why? If you go to track and field, you'll find, in fact, just at the recent World Championships, women were starting to complain about not only do we have to wear these skimpy outfits, they've put cameras at the starting blocks looking up at the faces of athletes, and they felt that was rather invasive. So, appearance still counts. 2, be sensitive and caring. Now, this is a theme that's carried throughout the course so far. Women are expected to be nice, differential, that is, backing off and being, submissive, and helpful, and to care about and for others. Girls learn to be that being outspoken and smart doesn't win them prizes. When was it supposed to? And yet that's still something that we hold, and women feel pressure to perform. Even if you're in a related, in a marriage, and your husband's family, or a parent, a father or a mother gets ill, it's oftentimes the husband's wife that will take the responsible role of looking after that person, not the husband whose parent it is. 3. Negative treatment by others. Devaluation and mistreatment of females is pervasive in Western culture. This devaluation is internalized and can be especially intense in girls' peer groups. Young girls engage in relational aggression, which involves attacking others using social rather than physical strategies. 4, and this is where I just touched just a moment ago, be a superwoman. Many young women today seem to feel they are expected to do it all. There is tension in trying to figure out how to have a family, a life, and a successful career. And again, with women, there is no single meaning of feminine anymore. That's 5. Themes of femininity reveal both constancy and change. Traditional expectations still exist, yet there are options that allow women to define themselves in diverse ways. Growing upside the conventional gender for people who do not identify with and perform normative gender identity, and heterosexuality, growing up can be particularly difficult. Social isolation greets many people who are gender non-conforming or trans. Now, this is also difficult to find role models and acceptance from family, peers, and society. More recently, transgender and intersex people have made their identities and struggles public. And we've seen this a lot in the last 5 years, maybe 10. But it's been going on since the early 20th century. One sign of changing attitudes is evolving school policies and laws. Transgender people face particular challenges about their gender performance and living day-to-day life that gender-conforming people do not face. Well, again, another quick overview of becoming gendered. I hope this has been helpful for you. I look forward to seeing you all next week. See you online. Bye now.